Hi and welcome. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly show on WFNP The Edge, where we discuss New Paltz's history and the history of the Hudson Valley. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm the Communications Manager at Historic Huguenot Street, which is a nonprofit 10-acre National Historic Landmark District dedicated to preserving historic buildings, artifacts, and manuscripts, and promoting the stories of the Huguenot Street families who founded New Paltz. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank some individuals who were involved in our inaugural Fall Harvest Celebration fundraising dinner this past Saturday. It was our first annual event of this sort to raise funds for our vital preservation efforts and educational programming, and it was such a success. We have many people to thank for that. First, I'd like to thank Huguenot Street's development team, Kay Flaminio, Shane Stewart, and Natalie Kickle, for planning, organizing, and coordinating this great event. I'd also like to thank our co-hosts for the evening, HHS Board Chair Marietta Schneider and Arts Mid-Hudson Board Chair Angela Henry. For those who don't know, the SUNY New Paltz School of Business actually named Marietta the 2015 Business Person of the Year. And Angela Henry, being a trained actor and a professional voice actor, actually provided the narration for the Walking Tour mobile app that we launched earlier this year. It was an honor to hear from the recently appointed Honorable Consul General of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Dolf Hogwanning. We're so grateful he could be there, and we are happy to continue to preserve and interpret Hudson Valley Dutch history on our site. It was always, as it always is, a pleasure to hear from Bob Hasbrook, who we honored on Saturday. Bob has been a tireless advocate for Historic Huguenot Street for decades, as well as for both the Jean Hasbrook House and the Abraham Hasbrook House, two of the most distinctive stone houses on Huguenot Street. Thanks to the Hasbrook family's dedicated efforts, both of these houses have been preserved and stand as an enduring monument to the Huguenot experience in America. Bob has served as president of the Hasbrook Family Association since 1994. We also had Mayor Tim Rogers join us. Thank you, Tim, for being there. Thanks as well to our event sponsors, the Hasbrook Family Association, Bruce McKinney, in honor of Adelaide Catherine McKinney and Thomas C. McKinney, Homer J. Olson, in memory of Joyce Deo Olson, James and Mary Ottaway, Marietta Schneider, and Carolyn Schoonmaker, in memory of Samuel Schoonmaker III. Thanks to our event benefactor, Robin Gerke, and to our event supporters, Peter and Helena Beanstock and Stephen Lum. We also had an amazing farm-to-table dinner. It was unbelievable. So thank you to our caterer, Harvest Real Food, and thanks to Kevin Zraeli, who made our wine selections. And thank you to the Abalone Moon Trio, who provided music. And of course, thank you to the board, staff, and volunteers of Historic Huguenot Street, who make everything possible. We raised tens of thousands of dollars from this event, and we are so grateful to all of our donors and supporters. Keep an eye on our Facebook page for photos from that event, and if you're interested in supporting Historic Huguenot Street as a volunteer or donor, visit our website at huguenotstreet.org for more information. Tonight we'll be discussing some of Historic Huguenot Street's preservation projects, which your donations directly support. And I'm joined now by Historic Huguenot Street's Site Supervisor Renzo Cinti and Historic Preservationist Ken Follett. Thank you both for joining me. Now, Renzo, you've been with us at Historic Huguenot Street for over a year now. Can you just tell us a bit about the work you do here?
Yeah, we have about 10 acres on grounds that I maintain. I also maintain and preserve the houses. We have 7 museum houses, and we also have 4 houses which we rent out to tenants and stuff like that. So when I take care, I make sure that everything's going well in those houses, and I deal with the problems that the tenants may have in there too. I'm also responsible for the security on the property in the houses.
Great. And Ken, can you tell us what you do as a historic preservationist and how you got involved with Historic Huguenot Street?
I've been involved in contracting and historic work for about 40 years now. I started out as a stonemason, and then for some 20 years was owner of a small company in Brooklyn that did all types of exterior restoration work. And over the last 14 years, I've been partners with my son, and we work directly with architects and structural engineers in their investigations of structures. My involvement here is working with Renzo as a consultant in project management. I'm not particularly the expert in wood shingle roofing, but I am an expert in making sure projects don't get messed up in that process.
Good. Perfect. Great. So Ken is currently as he said, helping with being a project manager for the Gene Hasbrook Roof Restoration Project. To give you some background, the Gene Hasbrook house, as it appears today, was built by Jacob Hasbrook, son of New Paltz patentee Gene Hasbrook and his wife, Anna Deo Hasbrook. It's a dramatic structure built in a form that is unique to colonial American architecture. And for those of you in town, it's the house that sits directly behind the stone monument at the intersection of Huguenot Street and North Front Street. This house is part of our regular tours, and inside, visitors learn about the evolution of the Huguenots community in the 1700s as part of a British colony, through the American Revolution, and the emergence of an American identity. The Gene Hasbrook House was the first structure purchased by the Huguenot Patriotic, Monumental, and Historical Society. It's been in operation as a museum since 1899. This house underwent a major restoration in late 2008, and we're currently raising funds to restore its iconic roof. So, can you tell us a bit about the current condition of the roof and why it needs to be restored or replaced?
Well, it's sort of gotten to a point in which its service life is towards an end, and it's prudent to make a replacement now before there's water penetration problems into the interior of the structure, which would affect the structure as a portion of the collection, but also the objects within the building.
Right. So what kind of impact will this winter's weather have on the roof?
It will probably not be much more significant than the condition that it's already in.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, we've been monitoring it, so there is not a lot of water coming in. You'll see spots where you can see the shingles getting wet, but it's not to the point yet where we're actually having water pouring in and ruining the timber framing.
Okay, great. So what's happening, the issue is with the shingles mostly, would you say?
Well, there's a couple things going on. A couple years back, there was a desire, the program started towards wanting to replace the shingles. It's taken a few years to get to this point. The timber framing that is supporting the roof is quite unique in its structure, and particularly in the steepness of it. But right. There's issues with bracing and pieces that are not well connected. So the first thing that we have done, which we're currently in process, is having a structural engineer come and take a look at it. Mm-hmm. Because what we don't want to do is be in a position that once when the crew comes to start taking the shingles off and they're jumping around up on top of the roof, that they're not causing a problem
Sure.
to the structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case of being prudent and making sure that either those timbers need to be stabilized or potentially rebuilt. And until we have the report from the structural engineer, we're not quite sure where that's going.
Okay, great. All right, so our next step is, the work we're doing right now with the structural engineer. And then what do you expect to happen next? Because I believe we're planning on starting some work in the spring, correct?
Yeah, well, we're gonna check that out and see, depending on how much work needs to be done on the timber framing, and we won't know that until we get the report. Mm-hmm. We might be able to start some of that through the winter, if we find a contractor that we feel, understands that this is a historic building, that, by working on it, he's becoming part of the history of that building. So
right.
we're being very, very careful in choosing a contractor who understands, like I said, that it is a historic building and that he's not just there to make money, basically.
Yeah, sure. I guess, that's something that maybe people don't think about, which is that, not just any, roofer can work on this house.
Correct.
It's not just any roof.
Well, this is the gem of the collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really an iconic part of the site. So I'd like to ask you both this question. Since you both do work like this, why do you feel preservation work like this is so important, Renzo?
Well, for me, preservation has two sides. The first side is that you're making sure that the house is going to stand and you're doing it in a historical way. The second part of it is that while you're doing restorations, you're also having engineers, architects coming in, and they do a historical structure report of that building, which then reveals the history of the building, which allows you to interpret it in the correct way. And because we know that history, repeats itself, we can look into these historical values and then check out and make sure that we're not making the same mistakes over and over again in terms of history. For example, we have houses here that have shown evidence of slavery, and because these houses are restored and these dwellings are still around, Joseph McGill, who started the slave dwelling project, was also able to invite people to go to these historical sites, sleep in it, thus awakening that dialogue in a safe way.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Exactly. If those structures didn't exist, it would be, not quite so easy to keep having that conversation.
Correct.
How about you, Ken?
I consider that preservation of our existing structures is not simply or not solely an historical aspect, but it's an optimism in the future that we wouldn't have any desire to maintain what we have if we did not think that it would be there for generations beyond us. And so when we're approaching the Hasbrook House, we need to think in terms of who's going to be looking at it 100 or 200 years from now. Seeing as it's been around for 300 years, we should hope that another 500. Easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a really good point.
Great. So right now we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to WFNP The Edge. Hi, and welcome back. You're listening to Historic Huguenot Street's weekly program on WFNP The Edge. I'm Kaitlin Gallucci, and I'm joined tonight by Historic Huguenot Street's Site Supervisor Renzo Cinti and Historic Preservationist Ken Follett, the project manager for the Jean Hasbrook House Roof Restoration Project. So we've been specifically discussing the Jean Hasbrook House roof. What other preservation needs do you have on your radar, Renzo?
We have no shortages of preservation needs. With 7 museums, you can imagine how much needs to be done. What we're currently looking at, so we're doing pretty much at the same time as the Jean roof, the 1717 reconstructed French church has been showing movement, so there have been a few cracks in there, so we've asked a structural engineer to come in and look at that. And now we're going to be doing some work to stabilize that so it doesn't get any worse to the point where we can have a structural engineer actually tell us what to do in order to keep that from moving any further.
Great.
The other one is the house that we're sitting in is a LeFevre house, and we have quite a bit of work to do in that we have to do a geotechnical evaluation of the ground because we have seen some movements of the foundation, and we're trying to figure out what's causing that, because it could also be the difference in the soil over time. We have been having droughts, so what is happening there? We've also been putting in dehumidifiers, which takes the moisture out of the ground as well. So we're going to try to figure out what and if that is causing movement in the building. There's also we need to shore up the first floor a little bit, so we'll be looking at that. Another project that we'll be looking at relatively soon is the Freer House, which at the moment is not open. It's on the farthest north end of the Huguenot Street, and it is not open to the public yet, but we would like to get that open to the public. So we've had an engineer come in and tell us what needs to be done to get it to that point. We will also be probably redoing the roof for that house as well, because it's at the point where some of the shingles are curling, and the back part of the house, which has an addition, the roof is not as steep as the rest of the roof. So when the snow and the type of snow that we've been getting is ice and rain, has caused a bit of damage there, so we might be thinking of changing it to an aluminum roof. We're still talking about all those issues though. But those
Okay.
are like 3 prevailing projects that'll be going on.
Great. A lot to do.
You have to do it, you got it.
So I have one more question for both of you. How can people interested in historic preservation support these projects or get involved? Renzo, are there opportunities at Historic Huguenot Street?
Well, there are, and I'm relatively new here, and I would like to see volunteers and set up projects. We did have a workshop for our graveyard, for our burial ground, in terms of restoring gravestones. And so we invited a professional called John Appel to come in here, and he did a workshop, which other people, attended and learned how to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was great.
We also had in the past, when we were restoring one of the chimneys, that we actually made the bricks here on site, and then they were then used to restore that chimney. Those are the kind of projects I would love to see happen here. I mean, there are so many opportunities where we can bring in people that are interested. You can go on the website, huguenotstreet.org, push support us, and you'll have a dialogue box that shows, if you want to do it monetarily, you can do that. You can even give some money for the Jean House roof, which we could still use a little bit. We're almost there, but not quite.
Yeah, very close. Yeah.
Yes, very close. Thanks to Kay and everybody else who's been donating. We also have, we have sponsor opportunities. We have volunteer opportunities as well. And as I said, I haven't been here long, but I'm hoping to get more people in the community involved.
Yeah, definitely. And Ken, do you have any suggestions?
Well, on the issue of workshops, one thing that you could consider is bringing someone in that knows how to make shingles by hand and put on a workshop. Though there's a lot of shingles that are needed, so I wouldn't suggest that as an avenue towards replacing the shingles, but it
That's
would
cool.
go along with the project. In my background, I was a founder and first past president of the Preservation Trades Network, which is an organization that full of traditional trades practitioners, and it includes people, particularly from Pennsylvania Historic Museum Commission, who are very much into making shingles.
Wonderful.
Cool.
We also,
It's hard to find people. That's part of the problem, and getting them to this location in order to do the work that they do is another
I can imagine.
consideration.
We also have a lot of little outhouses where that might come in handy. You don't need
Oh yeah, there you go.
10,000 shingles.
Yeah. Well, I love outhouses.
There you
Yes.
go.
I'm famous for my outhouse work.
Good. We can use
SOS,
that.
save our structures, or single occupancy structures. Yeah. Yeah, they're very important.
Great. Well, Renzo and Ken, thank you both so much for joining me. Once again, for those listening, if you are interested in supporting Historic Huguenot Street as a volunteer or a donor, visit our website at huguenotstreet.org for more information. As a nonprofit, all of this preservation work can only be completed with your support. Another announcement, this is an exciting one, tickets for Haunted Huguenot Street tours are now available. These tours always sell out, so I encourage you to register soon, and you can do that at huguenotstreet.org/haunted. Tours will run on the last 3 Fridays and Saturdays of the month, hourly, from 5 to 9 p.m. Every year, our Haunted Huguenot Street tours are different, and this year's will bring guests into 4 historic houses while exploring the history of oppression, particularly in the case of oppressed women in the 17th through 19th centuries. We'll revisit the true story of a tormented mother and learn about sexist witch trials, kidnapped wives, mourning brides, and the curse of infertility. Again, tickets are available now at huguenotstreet.org/haunted. And as usual, we will close the street to vehicular traffic for our annual trick-or-treating from 4 to 6 p.m. on Halloween, just before the New Paltz Halloween Parade. We're wrapping up now, but listeners can tune in every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. for the rest of the semester at WFNP.org or 88.7 FM to hear more from Historic Huguenot Street. Visit huguenotstreet.org for information on all of our upcoming events. You can also follow us on social media and sign up for our email list to stay informed on what's happening on the street. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.